evening, everyone. Welcome to the News Today edition of 29th of November, wherein we pick up all important news for the day and explain it to you from the UPSC examination perspective. So let's look at the important news which we're going to cover today. First is India has been re-elected to the International Maritime Organization Council for the year 26-27 and with the highest number of votes this time. Then the Bureau of Indian Standards has released India's new earthquake zonation map of 2025. There are some researchers who have claimed to crack the reason behind collapse of Indus Valley civilization. The Central Groundwater Board has released the annual groundwater quality report of 2025. And on the matters of disaster management, there has been some fiscal fault lines in India, which is going to be discussed in this particular piece of news. We're also going to see some quick updates for the day. So the very first news is India has been re-elected to the International Maritime Organization, and this time with the highest number of votes. So again, a part of your prelim syllabus, because in maybe many institutions and bodies which comes up in news, they get reflected in a form of a question in your prelims examination. As far as the mains examination is concerned, in paper number 2, we have a specific topic of international organizations, international institutions. So that is how it is related to that particular topic. Imagine a situation, let's say we are traveling in roads and maybe there are different vehicles who are traveling, maybe who are commuting in the roads. Now, different vehicle maybe follow different kind of rules. Right, and the roads are again, there have to be some safety standard which has to be maintained for the highways. Similarly, this is something you shift it to the water resources. Let's say we have big oceans of the world, and there are ships which are considered to be vehicles. So how exactly they are going to be managed, how we are going to make the whole process more safer, internationally agreed rules have to be there. So that is where this organization comes into picture. So let's look at what are the basic things. So this is the full form, of course, is International Maritime Organization. Its headquarters is in London, UK. These all are prelims facts. Then its genesis is, of course, in the year 1948. Earlier, it was called as Intergovernmental Maritime Consultative Organization. The name IMO has been changed in the year 1982. Again, basic fact, not much of that relevance. Then under the United Nations, so it is a specialized agency which is responsible for making the entire shipping industry across the world safer, that again no big accidents are happening, maybe the ship let's say transportation is on a safer side. Then it is clean because environment, ocean, ecosystem have to be maintained. So ships do not pollute the oceans, and it is also making sure that again there is security in the international trade with respect to no piracy, terrorism, illegal trafficking, and many such things. So these are the basic responsibilities which this International Maritime Organization does. So India has been re-elected for the year 26-27 with the highest number of votes. That is the basic news over here. So what does it mean? Let's say if India has been re-elected, what is the significance for India that we need to know? So this committee is basically consists of executive committee which takes major decisions around the matters what I have discussed, the safety of sea, the pollution, and the piracy, anti-trafficking rules, many such things. So again, this committee is the one who takes such major decisions as far as this organization is concerned. So currently there are 40 member countries under IMO, and they are categorized in 3 categories. Category number A, which consists of nations which have the biggest shipping fleets across the world. So they are in category A. In category B, all the nations with largest interest in sea trade. So this is where India has been re-elected in category B, because majority of Indian trade happens through the sea routes. So this is where India falls. And in category C, all such nations are kept that represent different regions of the world. So this is the 3 categories which are there, under which the 40 countries under IMO have been classified. And again, being India in the council basically means it gives us a bigger voice in making global maritime rules, of course. It is protecting us in the matters of trade trade routes, ships, and seafarers, and is strengthening the role as major Indian ocean power. So this is a basic understanding as far as IMO and again the executive membership is concerned. Then, with respect to the idea of there have been different kind of strategies, different kind of conventions which are being released by this IMO. Again, important factual piece of news for your prelims examination, because whenever this body comes up in news, we are going to give you a basic background of such institutions with respect to conventions, strategies, which are important from examination point of view, right? So we have a Marpol convention, which is basically talking about the idea of controlling pollution in the sea. So that is under Marpol Protocol. So the full name, of course, here is International Convention for Prevention of Pollution from Ships. So it is preventing pollution from oil spills, because you understand oil spills are happening, garbage, then harmful gases from the ships. So that is being covered under the Marpol Protocol Convention. Then we have Ballast Water Management Convention. So again, many times, many invasive species who are not native to the ecosystem of the ocean gets maybe included in the ecosystem due to what? This shipping industry. So this is where that has also been controlled, because invasive species can damage the entire ecosystem and different organisms who are native to that particular ecosystem. So this is where this protocol or convention is stopping the spread of invasive aquatic species which are carried out by this ballast waters. Then we have SOLAS, that is safety of life at sea. It is setting the minimum safety standards for ships, because again in ship people are traveling. So it covers fire safety, the navigation, the life saving equipment, many other things basically who are traveling at sea. So that safety is being covered under this particular convention. Then we have STCW, that is standards for training, certification and watchkeeping of seafarers. So many people who are in the ships, who are doing the basic task of running those ships, they need to be trained in a standardized manner. So this is the convention is covering. So it is setting global standards for how sailors are trained and certified. And lastly, we have 2023 IMO strategy, which is trying to curb down the greenhouse emissions which are emitted by the transportation of these ships. So it is telling that again by 2050 we are trying to achieve the idea of net zero emission by ships, and again we are pushing it for cleaner fuels, greener ship design. So that is the basic idea as far as this convention is concerned, and the basic strategies and conventions which have been released by it. So this IMO as a body is important, number one. Number two, India has been re-elected with the highest number of votes. So out of all the bodies, this body is important for the examination of next year. And number three, the basic strategies, protocols which we have discussed, again are prelims facts which could be reflected in the form of question in the examination. Now moving on to the next news, so which talks about that recently again the Bureau of Indian Standards has released the new earthquake seismic zones of map of India. So that is why it is in news. Again, paper number 1, earthquakes, geography. Paper number 3, disaster management. Again, earthquake is an important topic. So this is the news, and let's see what has happened over here. So the new zonation map, that again you understand it again with the changing global, let's say maybe the plate boundary actions and everything is changing. So this is where the map which we used to have with respect to classification of seismic zones or earthquake zones in India, they have to be revised, and this revision have been done by Bureau of Indian Standards. So that is why it is in news. So again, it is reflecting which parts of the country are safe, which are risky, and which are extremely risky as far as the earthquake as a disaster is concerned. So why it was needed? Because earlier the maps used to have, maybe they were based on very old data, but now with the technological advancement we are getting updated data. So this is where we are getting to know new fault. That is, what are faults? Faults are basically cracks in the Earth's crust system. Then we are maybe having maximum likely events, because how we can track it down by with the use of technology, where again biggest possible future earthquakes can be mapped. Then the tectonic level activity, that is movement of plates, the lithology, that is type of rocks, the attenuation, how vibrating travels, all of these are taken up into consideration in the making of the new seismic zones map of India. So let's look at what new things have been there in the map. So the new zonation has changed some things. Number one is, so earlier we used, India was classified majorly in 4 seismic zones, that is from zone 2 to zone 5. Zone 2 signifies the least risky zone, and zone 5 signified the high risky zone. So now we have added one more zone in the seismic zones of the country, that is zone number 6, which is the called as the super danger zone, right? And which states are of India are included? The entire Himalayan belt has been considered as the super danger zone, and it has been clubbed in zone number 6. So earlier this zone, again, what all states are there? Entire Himalayan arc from JNK to Himachal, Uttarakhand, Nepal border, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh. So all of them have been kept in zone number 6. Earlier these states were the part of zone 4 and 5. So now they have been separately included in zone number 6 because of the highest or the super danger zone which have been classified in these states. Now, in the boundary zones, because many times, let's say zone number 2 and zone number 3, so there are states which are lying in the boundary of zone number 2 and 3. So all those states who are lying in the boundary of the 2 zones are automatically classified as under the higher risk category. So again, this is preventing underestimating the risk in the boundary zones. Clear? And lastly, the hazard mapping has not to be done on the basis of administrative and political boundaries of the states. It has to be entirely done on the basis of the geology. So that is something which has been reconsidered under this new mapping which has been done by BIS. So these are the new changes which have been done. I'll make you visualize it. So this one is the old map which was released in the year 2002. This is something was the old 4 zones, zone 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this is the map which is classifying which states are falling under which zone. So earlier you understand, now the entire Himalayan belt is under the red or the 6th zone. So earlier it was in zone 4 and 5. So now what has happened? So the entire belt, this belt of Himalayan region is completely under zone number 6. So that is the change what we have seen. This was the earlier map, and this is the new map which is classifying the seismic zones of India into 5 zones. Zone 2 to zone number 6. Zone 2 signifying the least risk of earthquakes, and zone number 6 classifying the highest risk of earthquakes. So that is very important from geography point of view, from disaster management point of view for your examination. So in terms of the report also, it has talked about that earlier the earthquake zone had 59% of chances of the land areas were liable to seismic hazard. Under this new category, 61% of Indian land mass have now been classified in the moderate to high risk hazard zones. Earlier it was 59%, so there are more chances of earthquake going to happen as per the new standards. And 75% understand the intensity and the volume of people or the number of people staying in this earthquake seismically active regions. So that is implying the very seriousness in the matter of better planning of the city administration or the urbanization process or the developmental process, keeping in mind these seismic zones. So 75% of India population stays in these seismically active zones. So why does the new map of India mean for India? So it tells us that we need to retrofit the high risk regions. Again, old buildings which were under zone 5 have been moved to zone number 6. So they need more strengthening in terms of development. Then no expansion on soft sediments or active faults. So in the active faults region, where again there is a high probability of earthquakes going to happen, there are soft soil. What are soft soil? It is just like trampoline. Right, so there have to be, it basically tells, in these soft soils act as a trampoline, which is increasing the risk of shaking. So buildings near these fault lines should not be made and should have a very clear restrictions, because they are the high intensity zones of earthquake which can happen over there. And then uniform building standards in Himalayan states, as they have been classified as super risky zones. So again, there have to be uniformity of building standards across all zones, keeping in mind the strict safety norms. So this is something which is talking about how we are going to cope up with the idea of earthquake with respect to the new map released by BIS. So as far as the disaster of earthquake is concerned, so government basically have basic strategies to handle earthquakes. So number one, we have the NDMA, that is National Disaster Management Authority. So it makes disaster policies for the country. We have NDMA Act, and it ensures India is ready for big earthquakes. Then we have at state level the State Disaster Management Authority, which is each state prepares its own plans of disaster management and it implements disaster guidelines at a local level. And then we have National Seismological Network. So basically it is monitoring the earthquake activities across the world. That is how we are mapping in the world where earthquakes have happened, where it is long due, where again how faults are moving, how crust is moving, all such basic technological things are being mapped over there by this department. And they are working on how we can better manage or better predict the earthquakes by improving the early warning systems. So this is something what India is doing on an administrative level with respect to tackling earthquakes in the country. So very important piece of news for your prelims as well as mains examination. I think 1 or 2 questions have been asked. Earthquake is a very important topic. So one question in 21 mains examination discuss about the vulnerability of India to earthquake-related hazards, right? So earthquake-related hazards are many things, right? Give examples including the salient features of major disasters caused by earthquakes in different parts of India during the last 3 decades. Again, a very important segment. You're going to read that in disaster management. Then the frequency of earthquakes appear to have increased in the Indian subcontinent. However, India's preparedness for mitigating their impact has significant gaps. Discuss various aspects. In this, you can include now that again how the BIS has included or has revised its old seismic zones, and it has made a new seismic map of India, which is classifying the new, let's say, technological advancements on the basis of now we are classifying the seismic zones of India. So that is the new addition which you can include in such kind of questions. The next topic is Indus Valley Civilization. Of course, in your ancient history, in your art and culture, you are going to read about the ideas of Indus Valley Civilization, the oldest known civilization, also known as the Harappan civilization. So maybe once we read about the decline of Indus Valley civilization, there are multiple theories which tell the reasons of decline of Indus Valley civilizations, and there is no one single theory. So there are scientists, there are researchers who have researched one new theory. They are telling that it is not because of one catastrophic event which has led to decline of Indus Valley civilization. There has been some series of events which have led to the decline of Indus Valley civilization, and they have mentioned what are those series of events. So this is something which has been done by researchers who have published a new study in the Communications, Earth and Environment that explains why Harappan or Indus Valley civilization has declined. And the answer is it was not a single event. There were a series of events which has led to the decline of Indus Valley civilization. So again, very important topic as a let's say a part of history is back in news. So this topic of Indus Valley civilization has been many times asked in the examination of prelims with respect to the sites, with respect to the rivers, with respect to the social life, cultural life, political life, the grains which were found, the status of women. And in mains, of course, a lot of times, a lot of questions has been asked as far as Indus Valley civilization is concerned. So again, this is in news, so that makes this entire segment of your history important for the examination. That's how maybe the current events which come up in the newspaper gives you an idea that out of all topics which you read, which topics are important for your examination for the upcoming year. Clear? So let's see what this new scientists have talked about. They have told that again there has been a series of droughts which has happened in the Indus Valley civilization, and each of these drought lasted for 85 years. So they tell कि it is not just one sudden catastrophic event. They have told that there were centuries of prolonged droughts. For 85 years, there have been series of droughts, and they happened between 2425 to 1400 BCE, and that has these droughts affected almost the entire Harappan region. If droughts are happening, so crop failure would happen. If crop failure would happen, of course, people will migrate to the new areas, and that's how the civilization has declined. So drought, not just one drought, series of 3 droughts, and each drought lasting for 85 years. That is the new study which tells as one of the reasons of decline of Indus Valley civilization. It also talks about the dwindling resources, because there were also hydrological changes. The river changed, the river system, the water system changed its course because of some natural calamities, right? So rivers, lakes, and soils dried up, of course, due to drought. So Harappans in that era needed to keep relocating themselves in search of better water and fertile land if a drought is happening in an area. So of course people would migrate to a new area, right? And then water scarcity means, what do we have? We will have, of course, less food. Less food means fewer animals. People will feed on animals, and then more stress on society, again leading to a lot of changes. And this is the whole idea that, again, this is one of the reasons where, again, there were dwindling water resources due to the situations of drought that has led to the decline of Indus Valley civilization, because no water means no stable life, right? And that is where at now also in the present context, we need to save water. Because understand, if water was something which has led to decline of Indus Valley civilization, so we living in this civilization is also, the water resources are depleting, the water resources are contaminating. There is one news where we discuss that as well. So that is how you need to save water. And again, you need to adapt this behavior in your daily, day-to-day lifestyle. Then, with respect to what other things have been discussed, so they have also talked that there has been declining trade. How will trade decline? Because trade was also related to water. Maybe through shipping routes, trade used to happen. So now if there is a drought, there is sukha over there, so rivers do not have water. So of course boats cannot, or the ships cannot move in these, without water. So boats couldn't move easily. So rivers navigation became difficult, agricultural suffered, and trade with other regions reduced. That has led to, since Harappans dependent heavily on the trade networks, this was a major blow, and this is again a reason for the decline of Indus Valley civilization. Then what are the other factors? That these climatic problems started breaking down the system of society, right? If there is no water, if there is no trade, if there are droughts, of course the food supply is going to be diminished. Then there were fragile governance structure. Administration could not handle the pressure due to this drought-like situations. And people started migrating away in the large numbers, right? And so the civilization did not vanish overnight. It slowly, people moved out through the civilization due to the series of events which have happened over there. So this is the new scientists who have discussed that what led to and what are the series of events which has led to the decline of Indus Valley civilization, right? So now there have been some earlier theories as well which talk about that what were the reasons of Indus Valley civilization. Let's discuss them as well. So the catastrophic flooding, again, floods. We have discussed droughts. So flood were also one of the reasons which have been discussed as a theory that led to decline of Indus Valley civilization, right? So it was given by Raiken's hypothesis. So he talked, and what was the evidence he talked about? That in the houses of Mohenjo-daro, he found maybe silt clay. Silt clay used to deposit whenever there were floods coming into picture, because the clay is very, let's say, fine soil type. So it comes whenever floods happen. So that is why, through this evidence, he claimed that, again, flood was one of the reasons for decline of Indus Valley civilization. Why? Because the houses of Mohenjo-daro were covered with silty clay, and rebuilding activity was found many times that led to that flood have happened in a recurrent manner in that particular area that has led to to decline of Indus Valley civilization. One theory is earthquakes, because when earthquake happens, we have discussed earthquake nowadays, very recent in the last news. So earthquakes used to disturb the topography of the region. So many times, let's say this is a plain region. So the plain region or the entire plain region could get disturbed. Maybe, let's say, there is some kind of barrier which might come up in that region. So this is where the natural flow of river could be stopped. This is something which has talked, that earthquake raised the level of floodplains and blocking the passage of river water to the sea, forcing water into the cities, and that is leading to floods. So that is one other reason. Then changes in the course of river, again due to the earthquakes. Apparently river Indus shifted 30 miles away from Mohenjo-daro, drying up the river Ghaggar and Harka in Rajasthan, as per D.P. Agarwal. Then the barbarian invasions. Again, Rig Veda has mentioned the war which took place in Hariyuppa, which is probably the Harappan city, and Aryans fought a battle over here. So again, a battle was fought in the region that has also been considered as one of the reasons of decline of Indus Valley civilization. And then there is ecological imbalance which was there in that civilization, which is also considered. That historian Fair Service have emphasized that a delicate ecological balance of these semi-arid regions, because the Harappan civilization were in the western belt, was being disturbed by population and fast depleting resources. This is also being topped up by, again re-emphasized by D.P. Agarwal, that climate change was one of the reasons of decline of Indus Valley civilization. So again, there are different theories and they have given different types of evidences which claim their theory to be true. So again, it's a part of history, right? So new theories have come up. So that's how this topic is very important for your examination. And there are multiple number of times UPSC has asked questions from the topic of Indus Valley civilization. The next news is the annual groundwater report. The Groundwater Quality Report 2025 has been released by Central Groundwater Board of India. So this is an important piece of news because water pollution again is an important matter of your GS paper number 3, environment, right? Waterborne diseases. We are going to read basic sciences in prelims examination. There are a lot of questions which are being asked from the topic of water pollution. What all sources are there? Which source is leading to what kind of a disease? So all of these are covered in this particular piece of news. That is why it is important from environment prelims questions point of view, and you can quote these datas in your mains answer writing, where again we are discussing about water pollution as a problem, right? So let's look at what this report has talked about. It tells that the water survey has been done. The survey tells that 71.7% of India's groundwater meet the quality standards. It is something good news for us. At least 70.1% or 71.7% of the water of groundwater, is it good? Right, is of good quality. But 28.3% samples are not fully safe, as they exceeded the limit of one or the other parameters on which we classify that how much polluted the groundwater is. So let's discuss the sources and which states have the majority of them, how they are happening, and they lead to what kind of diseases. So this is a very important segment for your prelims examination question. So first is nitrate contamination. This is the biggest problem as far as groundwater pollution is concerned. So it is the most widespread pollutant in India's groundwater. 20% of the samples have exceeded the World Health Organization and Bureau of Indian Standards limit of 45 milligram per liter. So this is telling the intensity of this contamination. And why? Because of anthropogenic reasons, human-induced reasons. Why? Because we are overusing of fertilizers, the NPK fertilizers, which contains nitrogen, again leading to groundwater depletion, groundwater contamination. The sewage leaks, the industrial waste which carries nitrogen is seeping down to the groundwater, and again the nitrate contamination is happening, and the animal waste mixing with underground water. So these are the anthropogenic reasons or the human activities which is leading to nitrate pollution of groundwater. Then what all things are there? Let's see. The next is uranium contamination. So uranium is found, again, two types of samples were taken. One was pre-monsoon, one was post-monsoon. So pre-monsoon groundwater contained 6.71% uranium, and post-monsoon it was 7.91%. And the most top three affected regions of the country were Punjab, the highest, Haryana followed by Delhi, and uranium in groundwater is a primary source for your maybe affecting the kidney, and which is if that uranium contaminated water is consumed for a longer duration of time. Right? Then the salinity, that is the salt content in the water. So salinity basically means the water has too many salts, and how it is measured, which process? Electrical conductivity test. Again, an important factor of prelims examination. Right? Again, how can we measure the salinity content in groundwater? Which kind of test is done? Electrical conductivity test. So it is exceeded the limit. 7.23% samples have found salinity content in them, right? And they are found mostly in the arid and semi-arid regions of states of Rajasthan and as well as in Delhi. So again, it is of course going to taste water more salty and again unfit for drinking. So this is the fourth contaminant, followed by we have fluoride. So in 8.05% of samples of water which were tested, it contained the limit of fluoride content was higher. So again, the reason is mostly they are of geogenic nature. Geogenic means due to some natural form, because rocks in the weathering process, they have certain kind of fluoride content. So that is how they are entering into the groundwater system. So the worst affected region is Rajasthan, and fluoride consumption through water can cause dental and bone problems. Again, important. What is the source and what kind of disease and what is the reason, right? Then lead contamination in the waters of Delhi. This is found to be the highest. So Delhi has the highest lead contamination, right? So lead is dangerous. Why? Because it impairs the cognitive skills of children, specifically the brain and children, right? It increases blood pressure, it affects the kidneys, and it is a problem, probable carcinogenic let's say contaminant, right? So this is the prominent, let's say, contaminants of groundwater, what we have seen as per the report. Then the report also tells there are other geogenic, that are the some natural reasons through which groundwater contamination happens, and they are found in major belts of India. That is the arsenic belt of India is in Ganga and Brahmaputra basin, and the manganese is found in the basins of Assam, Karnataka, Odisha, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal. Then as far as irrigation suitability of the groundwater is concerned, we have some good news. It tells ki the groundwater which is going to be used for irrigation purposes, 94.3% of the groundwater is excellent for irrigation, and farmers can safely use it for agriculture, right? So these are the prominent findings of this particular report. These are the probable questions for your prelims examination: the source, then why it is happening, the reasons, then what kind of problems they are creating, how they are affecting human health, and which states have major contamination of which kind of water pollutant, right? So these are the 5-6 segments which you need to understand, remember from prelims point of view. Now this report is being released by Central. Again, this is something was come down in the Indian Express paper today. So the parameters and the kind of contaminant and how they are affecting human health in what possible manner through whenever their content in the water exceeds the limit, right? So again, very important, you can see them as well, that electrical conduct, the salt content maybe lead to cardiovascular complications. Uranium we have discussed, lead we have discussed, iron maybe promotes iron bacteria, nitrate we have discussed, fluoride we have discussed, chlorine, eye irritation, stomach discomfort, zinc, gastronomical issues, manganese diseases, neurological issues in infants and children, arsenic, skin damage, increases risk of cancer, copper, liver damage, sodium, cardiovascular issues. So all of these are the prominent health, let's say, implications of consumption of the water whenever these content are exceeding beyond the permissible limit in the groundwater. Clear? So this has been released by Central Groundwater Body, so which is located its office in Faridabad, Haryana. It is coming under Ministry of Jal Shakti, and it was started in the year 1970. Earlier, this body was called as Exploratory Tubewells Organization. It is being renamed to Central Groundwater Board of India. The role of course is management of groundwater, exploration, monitoring, regulation of India's groundwater. It is also performing the duties as Central Groundwater Authority under the Environmental Protection Act of 1986. Again, an important piece of institution, its genesis, its functions, what they are doing, again important from your prelims point of view. The next news is, again, whenever we talk about disaster management, right? So for whenever a state is being hit by a disaster, it needs fund, it needs money to tackle and to respond to that situation of disaster. So the recent debate is there that recently we had a landslide in Wayanad in Kerala region. So the Kerala state government tells that the amount of funds what we have received to respond to the situation of disaster was not sufficient enough. And that has put forward again a question with respect to the ideas of fiscal federalism. So again, we have a concept of cooperative federalism, where again states are cooperating in different matters. Whenever we talk about center-state relations, GST is a very classic example of cooperative federalism, where again states have given up their power of taxation to the central government. So now it is seen that again on the disaster management lines, there are some fiscal fault or fiscal faults are happening. So again, Kerala told the funds which were released were much less than what was needed, and this has raised a big question that again India's fiscal federalism is moving from cooperation, that is cooperative federalism, to a more centralized and conditional system. So let's look at that how are funds being dispersed from the center to the state government for disaster response in the country. So India's disaster response framework, financial framework, is basically covered under the Disaster Management Act of 2005. It has two bodies. We have two levels: State Disaster Management Response Fund at state level. So here money is shared by center and the states. The normal ratio for normal state is 75 to 25. 75% funds come from center, 25% funds come from the state government. And then in the Himalayan and northeastern regions, they have some geographical disadvantage situation. So here the sharing of funds is 90:10, 90 coming from center, 10 coming from the respective state. So this is for State Disaster Response Fund. We have National Disaster Response Fund, so fully financed, of course, by central government, and it helps states only when a calamity is classified as severe. Understand? This is an important segment of the news where again the severe word is not defined clearly. They tell that this fund is going to be released and given to states whenever a disaster which has hit a particular state is of severe category, but they have not defined what is severe. So this is where this is making the whole process of this fund very ambiguous in nature. So let's see what all things have been discussed. So the key institutional issues which has been discussed as far as financial matters with respect to disaster management of India is concerned. Number one, we have outdated relief norms. So again, as per the current norm, so if any person has lost a life due to any disaster, natural disaster, right? So the compensation is 4 lakh for each life lost. And this amount has not been changed since last 10 years, even though disasters are getting worse day by day. This is one major problem. Then ambiguity in classification, right? So again, as I discussed, the DM Act does not define what is the meaning of severe here. Once a disaster becomes severe, then only funds are released from the national fund. but the Act does not classify what is the meaning of severe here. So this gives central discretion that they decide that how money from NDRF is going to come out and how are they classifying a disaster as severe or not. Then slow aid release. So there are, whenever a person or whenever a disaster response need to release fund, there is a series of steps which has to be taken, which is making the entire process of dispersal of funds quite slow. How? State memorandum has to be released. It will go for central assessment. Then a high level committee is going to approve the release of fund. And this is where urgent help is getting delayed due to this too many steps. Then weak finance commission criteria. So the Finance Commission of India is using outdated indicators with respect to sharing of or dispersing of funds to the State Disaster Response Fund and the National Disaster Response Fund. How are they? So they are using population plus geographical area to measure disaster exposure, right? But do you understand how is population related to disaster management? Disaster is happening due to geographical reasons, right? This is where they do not reflect actual hazard patterns, and then poverty is also used as a criteria for disaster management fund dispersal, like how a particular area, how much people are poor, but does disaster see whether a person or whether a region is having poor people or rich people? If it is affecting, it is going to affect in a similar manner. Right, this is where, so these outdated things or indicators which are used to disperse fund have to be updated. So these are the few issues which have been discussed. So these are the key institutional issues as far as the fund management of disaster response in India is concerned, which has to be updated. Then, what is a way forward? What India should do? Again, there are two things which you need to understand. That again, any problem of any nature, if it is happening to a country like India, it must have happened to some other country as well. Disasters is not only coming to India. There are many countries who are maybe prone to disasters. They are also responding and tackling disaster situation. So what are the best practices which we can incorporate in the Indian management of disaster management as far as the fund wala matter is concerned? So we need to learn from global, let's say, best practices wherein they use scientific, automatic and faster disaster financing systems. USA is using FEMA, that is per capita damage threshold. That how per capita, if let's say disaster is happening in an area which has 100 population, on the basis of that threshold, disaster management funds are released. In Mexico, we have Fonden, that is automatically released funds where again the rainfall and wind limits are exceeding a certain threshold. Right? Then in Philippines, again the uses rainfall and fatality indices to trigger quick fund release. African and Caribbean facilities, they use satellite data for rapid payouts in the matter of disaster. So there are other few recommendations that again, you need to have a creation of a comprehensive vulnerability index in terms of dispersal of funds from the Finance Commission of India. Then you need to update the old relief norms, and you need to base funding on real hazard and disaster risk data, not on the basis alone of population and poverty parameters. So this is some way forward with respect to managing disaster funds in India. Again, a very important question, because fiscal federalism has different aspects. Disaster management, again, a very important segment for GS paper number 3, but money is also important. So again, this is a new segment which can come up in your mains examination. Then we are quickly going to see the news in short for today. The very first is a new IIT campus has been set up in Nigeria, right? So this is again a part of the National Education Policy of 2020. So Nigeria is going to host the first IIT campus, which its first batch in the year 2006, which is focusing, of course, on engineering, technology, and advanced research. It is aligned with the National Education Policy Program of 2020, which is encouraging global expansion of Indian institutions. IIT, of course, an eminent institution of India. IIT Madras earlier has opened an institution or a model institution in Zanzibar model, which was launched in the year 2013 with students from across Africa. So it a similar institution is set up by IIT Delhi in Dubai as its Abu Dhabi campus, which was opened in the year 2024, which is industry-aligned courses are being taught over there. So basically, this whole setup is going to boost India-Africa cooperation and global footprints for IIT. So again, in a question on India-Africa relations, this could be one of the point of collaboration between two countries. Then there is a rare red halo phenomena which has been observed in the Italian town, right? So what exactly is this? So it stands for emission of light and very low frequency perturbations due to electromagnetic pulse sources. Again, technical news here. So again, you need not to go too much into technicality. So some kind of event happens in the atmosphere due to lightning, due to some electrical, let's say, things which are happening over there, and that is leading to some kind of, let's say, for a tiny fraction of seconds, some kind of red light is being seen in sky. So that is this phenomena is called as ELVES, right? So they are they are very rapidly expanding red rings of light. They can go up to 300 kilometer wide in the lower ionosphere. So what is triggering them to happen? Electromagnetic pulse, which are produced during powerful lightning return strokes, discovered by Boeck, and why they occur, because whenever this electromagnetic pulse heats the free electrons in that ionosphere, there is sudden glow which happens of red color, which of very wide length of up to 300 kilometers. That is how it is happening. So they are basically seen in the ocean region and extremely short-lived for milliseconds, and they has been recently observed in an Italian town. That is why it was in news, right? Again, from this you can expect prelims based question. What do you mean by electromagnetic pulse? What do you mean by, let's say, rare red halo phenomena? Which city it was recently noticed? So that is how it can be interlinked. Then we have femicide. So Italy is a country which has again recognized this femicide under its law. So what is femicide? So again, whenever any person is killing someone only or solely on the basis that she is a woman, this incidence is basically called as femicide. That is intentional killing of women or girls because of their gender, right? So considered as one of the gravest forms of violence against women. So again, the Italian parliament has recently passed a law to strengthen the protection and punishment against femicide. So under the United Nations 2022 framework, there are 3 categories of femicide which has been discussed. Number 1 is intimate partner. Whenever your current partner, your ex-partner is committing a crime due to your gender, on the basis of your gender. Then family, again by relatives or bloods, marriage or adoption. And then by other perpetrator femicide by any non-family actor. So this is something, again, a very good law which Italy has passed. Then solar phase 2, which is expanding climate resilient solar irrigation, because for irrigation practices also we can go for what? Green technology. This is where this comes into picture, where again through solar power, if maybe the groundwater are extracted, we do not require electricity or maybe coal-based electricity for such irrigation purposes. This is something, an idea going by the idea of making agriculture more green in nature. So it is launched, the phase 2 is launched in, of course, November 2025. The first phase was from 19 to 24. So it is implemented by International Water Management Institute in collaboration with Swiss Agency for Development Cooperation. Again, important segment for your prelims examination. It is covering India, Bangladesh, Kenya, and Ethiopia. So aim is to promote equitable, sustainable, climate-resilient solar irrigation for small and marginal farmers of these countries. Focus is to reduce diesel dependence, improve water, energy, food security, and support low-carbon food agriculture. Then we have BARC India. So again, all of you understand TRPs. So what is TRPs? Television mein how much that show is performing well, we measure on the basis of TRP, right? So there is an institution which is called as BARC. One of its employee has been framed of manipulating the TRP of a particular show. That is why it was in news. So BARC has appointed an independent agency to probe allegations of TRP manipulation by an employee. So what is BARC? Stands for Broadcast Audience Research Council. So it is a joint industry international body formed by broadcasters, the advertisers, and media agencies. The role is it owns and operates India's official TV audience measurement system, and it decides which show is doing well. Right, the mandate of course is what it measures what people watched after it happens, not how and why they reached at a particular channel. Right, so measurement is what people have watched after a particular incident has happened. It ensures transparent, accurate, and representative TV viewership data of the country. Right, so this is some forgery kind of situation have been done. That is why it is in news. Then we have SEBI reclassifies as REITs. REITs, that is, REIT stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. What exactly is this? So basically understand, let's say there's a new shopping mall which is going to be constructed in a neighborhood. You cannot, we do not have, of course, many people do not have money to invest such huge amount of money to take up a shop over there, right? Or to buy the entire mall. So there are investors who buy such big pieces of mall and they sell out small shops to someone. That is also sometimes very much costly. So under these REITs, what is happening? Equity is happening. Let's say you are investing certain amount of money in that particular investment, and on the basis of profit which is being done by that particular mall or shop selling or rent selling, whatever it is, you are getting your share of profit as per as the profit which is made by that investment company. That is basically called as REITs, right? So it stands for Real Estate Investment Trust, a company that owns, operates, finances income generating real estate. It raises money by selling shares to the investors. It enables small investors like us to access real estate returns without buying the property, and it provides regular income, rent, dividends, and capital appreciation, right? Similarly, we have InvITs, which are maybe investing in roads, maybe railways, in such kind of investment projects. So earlier, there are two type of instruments. One is equity. What is equity? Where again, shareholders have ownership in the company, right? And one is a hybrid kind of a security, which is a mix of debt plus equity. So as per new SEBI classification, REITs have been shifted to equity instruments. Equity means people can invest small amount of money and they can get some return out of it. It can also help mutual funds to invest in such kind of a companies for a short-term or long-term gain period, right? But for InvITs, there is still hybrid category, that is both equity as well as we have debt. Then we have Cyclone Ditawa. So Cyclone Ditawa was in news. It has struck down the Sri Lankan coast and the, let's say, the southern region of India as well. So again, India has launched an operation called as Operation Sagar Bandhu. Again, these kind of facts comes up in your prelims examination. So Operation Sagar Bandhu is what? India's respond to the cyclone Ditawa, which is assisting, of course, Sri Lanka coast, which is being affected by the cyclone, right? So what is Ditawa? It is a tropical cyclone which has affected the Sri Lanka in the southern India. So it is contributed by Yemen, because you understand how a cyclone is being named. We have a name of upcoming cyclone as well. So the World Meteorological Organization defines a tropical cyclone whenever the wind speed is exceeding the gale force limit of greater than 63 kilometers per hour. Basics about cyclones. Tropical cyclones are low pressure system are generated, which is strong rotating winds. In the northern hemisphere, the winds are rotating in anti-clockwise direction, in southern clockwise direction. Basic facts you're going to read about cyclones. Then we have NISAR satellite final. It has reached the final science phase, which has begun. It is a collaboration between ISRO and NASA on the low Earth observatory satellites, right? So that is the whole idea of it is. So it is orbiting which orbit? Sun synchronous polar orbit. So sun synchronous means they are crossing the same spot at same local time daily. Basically, it is going to give us images of Earth at different intervals, which is going to help us better frame different things: agriculture, climate change, early warning systems. All of these are going to be helpful with the use of data which is being sent, which will of course going to be sent by these satellites. collaboration between, first time a collaboration between NASA and ISRO. So again, the launch vehicle was GSLV F-16. It is, the payload includes what all things have went along with the satellite: dual band synthetic aperture radar SAR, L band of NASA, S band of ISRO. SAR is basically used for satellite motion radar to create high resolution images, which is going to be sending back to Earth. And day night all weather satellite, it is there. So basic facts, we have discussed multiple number of times this news. So it has reached the final science phase. That is why it was in news. The next news is Asia Power Index 2025. India has got the third spot under this particular index. It is being given by Lowy Institute of Australia. It measures power of 27 Asian countries and territories using certain indicators. 8 indicators are being used. What are those indicators? Military capability, economic capability, resilience, future resources, diplomatic influence, economic relationships and defense networks, and cultural influence. India ranked as third, which has improved its position as a major power, and still behind US and China. US has got first spot, China has got the second spot, and India's rising stronger economy, military capability, and the recent Operation Sindoor has boosted the regional influence in Asia and that is why the position of India has improved as a major power. Clear? Then MH-60R helicopters again are in news. Why? Because these helicopters are given, or maybe it's in a joint collaboration between India and US. So what we have done as a new agreement, that again, once helicopters are coming to India, so they need to be maintained. They need to be, let's say, they need for to maintain them, right? So there have to be some institutional development so that can better service these helicopters. So there's a letter of understanding which has been signed, a letter of agreement, that again with US, that again how we are going to maintain and long-term support which has to be given to these MH-60R helicopters. So it includes setting up of maintenance facilities in India itself, boosting the idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat, infra development hoga, employment generation hoga, right? And what is this helicopter? Advanced multi-mission naval helicopter used by US Navy and its allies. It is made by Lockheed Martin, equipped with state-of-the-art facilities, basic anti-submarine warfare, anti-surface warfare, maritime surveillance, search and rescue, utility and transport missions, operating at all weather conditions. So basic facts about MH-60R. Again, defense-based questions are also asked in your prelims examination. So with this, we come to an end for today's News Today discussion. Whatever questions which could be asked and which could be framed from the topic which I have discussed will pop up in your screen. Please solve those questions. It is very important that again, whenever you have read a particular piece of news, you see that what kind of questions can be put up from such topics. Whatever previous questions I shared with you, please try and write it down from the context of the news which I have discussed and keep on preparing. Lastly, Visualize has come up with the digital current affairs platform. Please explore the website. It is going to be helping you a lot with respect to your current affairs preparation for this examination. Thank you so very much and have a good night.